Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another exciting broadcast with us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. My name's Jesse. I'm the host with the team, and I just wanted to say a huge welcome to all of you joining us for the first time around the world today. If you are new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world through 40 live free monthly interactive broadcasts. Today really epitomizes what we're all about. We started live in Kenya with a lion conservationist. In the next hour and a half, we've got Ingenious Plus helping Canadian students become amazing innovators, and live from the EV Nautilus in the Pacific Ocean. It's a really exciting day. You can check out everything at our website and on our YouTube channel as well. And a big welcome to our huge YouTube audience too. We've got groups joining in 9 provinces, 3 U.S. states, and a class in Japan for good measure today. So a huge welcome to all of you. Thank you so much as we continue to showcase and celebrate the coolest people and places on planet Earth. Now, before I dive into today's speaker, I want to note we do have a Kahoot on the go. So between our talk and our Q&A, you can join in a little 4-question interactive fun quiz to keep it extra engaging. If you want to pull up kahoot.it and this game pin as a separate tab, in about 25 minutes, we'll get around to that. And I'm hoping we can break our personal Kahoot record today. So please do feel free to join in with that. Now, of course, the reason you're all here is because we are joined live by Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jenni Gibbons. And really, I could tell you a whole bunch of amazing accolades, accomplishments from her career to date, but you can find that out in the presentation, and you can find that out on the Canadian Space Agency website. So on a personal note, it is the most exciting time in the history of space exploration. To say nothing of our robotic programs, astronauts alone, we are doing incredible science on the ISS. With the Artemis missions, we're going back to the moon. And in the next few decades, we're going to be going to Mars. So if you're keen about astronauts, if you're keen to go to space in the future, this is the most exciting time in human history. And so for a Canadian, I am excited to have people that are not just accomplished, but are the best representatives, emissaries, ambassadors of Canada going out to represent us on a world scale and in history. And I can tell you from having talked to a lot of people who've worked with Jenni, partnered with her, done broadcasts with her like this, that there's no better ambassador for Canada than her, whether it's humility, accomplishments, whether it's her enthusiasm for sharing her story with kids like you. I'm so thrilled that we get to have her on today. And thank you for being such a great audience. Now, before I bring her in, I want to note, it's a video broadcast. We've all lived through 3 years, and we have a little bit of a tech issue in that her camera is not working, but she is a fantastic voice in the ether today. And so I'm going to bring in Jenni. Welcome in the program, Jenni. So nice to have you. And I know you've got a lot to share with us, so I'll bring up your presentation as well.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here. Apologies again, my camera is not working, but hopefully you can all hear me.
And you are perfect and good to go. Let's dive in, Jenni.
All right, excellent. Let's get started. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. I love speaking to people all over the world, but Canada in particular. I always find it very energizing. Right now, I am at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, where I spend all of my time training to fly in space and supporting current space missions. And I'm going to talk to you today about Canada's role in lunar exploration and a little bit about the training that I've taken to prepare to return to the moon with Canada's contribution to the Artemis program. So let's get started with a little bit of background. I am a member of Canada's Astronaut Corps. There are 4 of us in total. You can see in this photo in front of some of the jets that we fly for training and crew coordination purposes. They're called the T-38s. I am standing there next to Jeremy Hansen. To my left is Josh Kutrick. And then on the other end of this photo here, there is David Seychak. David flew to the International Space Station in 2018, which was really cool to watch his progress and his mission. He stayed up there for more than 6 months, which is very cool before returning back to Earth. Josh is going to be the next of us to fly to the International Space Station, and Jeremy and I are both assigned to the Artemis missions. He is the prime crew member on Artemis II, and I am his backup. So right now we are undergoing all sorts of training to learn how to live in a capsule that's going around the moon. But I'll get to that later. First, I want to talk about what it means to be in the Astronaut Corps. And most of you will probably think of flying in space first. But I also want to mention that a lot of our work is supporting missions that are happening right now in space from the ground. So I think this is a really cool photo because it kind of gives you the perspective of what it's like to be in mission control. So here I am in the center of this photo. I am, my chair says capcom, but actually I'm a ground IV or intravehicular officer. That's a fancy term for a communicator. And essentially what I'm doing is I am talking to astronauts through a spacewalk to install new solar panels on the International Space Station. I've done this role 5 times, and it has been incredibly cool. I've learned a lot every time that I've done it, and that's the key to a lot of our success in the astronaut office, is always learning. And we accomplished this amazing upgrade of the International Space Station. So I spend a lot of time on the ground, and a lot of my role not only training myself to fly in space, but supporting the astronauts that are in space on the International Space Station right now. Again, tremendously cool role. And now I want to talk to you a little bit more about what it might be like to be an astronaut who is eventually flying in space. So I want you to all picture, again, we know David spent a long time on the International Space Station, but picture yourself being up there. You're on the International Space Station, maybe you're month 3 or 4 out of a 6-month mission, and you're getting used to it now. You understand the cadence of the day. You've woken up in the morning, or maybe you've just finished a long day of work. You've yet to speak with the ground, and for that day in particular, and you're floating through the Japanese module, and you look out the window. Right next to you is the airlock. You can see where we launch CubeSats back down toward our Earth. You can see some of the robotics on the International Space Station, and you look out towards these solar panels. You see the sun against a dark sky, which was strange at first, but now you've gotten used to it, and you are in awe of this laboratory that is orbiting the Earth. And that's been there for 25 years, and we have just gotten a phenomenal amount of science from that platform and through the experiments we've completed on that platform. And even though you've been there every day for 3 months, you're going to be there every day for 3 more months. You're just in awe of what this feat of engineering is. I love this photo for that reason, like as if you're just looking out the window in that module. You're looking port, to the left of the space station. And I love this for that reason. It gives you that astronaut perspective, but it also, you can see actually some of the solar arrays that we deployed on those spacewalks that I talked about. So this was my first time having a more personal relationship with some of the equipment that was deployed on the space station. And you can see where those solar arrays kind of look like they're overlapping. Those are actually some of the new rollout solar arrays that we deployed. And we just do that because, like things in your house, sometimes we need to upgrade, especially for power generation on the ISS as things get old. Again, that international collaboration, this platform is 25 years old, which is pretty amazing. So keep this picture in your head. And now I want to show you another picture from an astronaut's perspective. And this one's a little different. So let's just take a minute to look at this one. How cool is that? This is an absolutely beautiful image. It is one of the first gifts of the Artemis program. This is a picture of our moon taken on the lunar flyby during the Artemis I mission. This was an uncrewed test flight of the Orion capsule. A lot of you might know about Artemis so far, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. And I love this photo because it gives us so much perspective. Those of you who really love spaceflight, you've probably seen another really famous photo that was taken during the Apollo era when we first went to the moon. And that's the Earthrise photo that was taken on Apollo 8. And this reminds me of that because it's just a new perspective, one that not many humans have seen before. And that's one of the big gifts of spaceflight, and certainly of Artemis. And it's so cool to see now exactly what the Artemis II crew, when they fly on this capsule no earlier than November next year, they are going to see this view. Imagine looking out your window and seeing that. Maybe it's now your second mission now that you've been to the International Space Station. That's just truly incredible. And to be able to bring that back to the people of Earth and describe it, let alone to contribute the science and the robotics that helps us survive in space. That's just such a cool thing that Canada's space program is doing. So that crew in particular, I want to talk about them now because this photo also makes me really proud. This is a photo of the Artemis II crew. So the commander is Reed Wiseman. We have the pilot, Victor Glover, behind him. To the right of Reed, we have Christina Cook, and then we have Jeremy Hansen, one of our own. So again, he's a Canadian astronaut, and it's phenomenal to see him assigned to this mission. You can see them in their Orion training suits now. So that's a nice context to this picture. And they're going to be launching on that mission and looking at that view of the lunar flyby that I just showed you no earlier than November of next year. So it's phenomenally exciting for Canada to be a part of really the most critical mission in human spaceflight that NASA's put together in the last 50 years. How amazing is that? And to see him in that mission is just special for me. I'm very, very proud, obviously. He's a very good friend. But it's also cool because I get to participate in a certain way. So here's a picture of me in one of my first suit fits. I'm newly assigned to be the backup for Jeremy, which just means that first and foremost, if there's any circumstance that requires Jeremy to drop out of the mission, I will fill in for him. So I will be fully qualified to fly on that mission should those situations arise. But it also allows me to undertake all of the training, be involved in all of the test runs and design decisions for the procedures and the logistics that we're going to need to go back to the moon. The first trip back to the moon since Apollo in 50 years. And we're doing it as this international partnership, which I just think is a very sustainable way forward. I mean, Apollo was groundbreaking, but the Apollo era ended because it was costly, it was expensive, and it's difficult to sustain something like that if you're alone in it. But by having international partners involved, similar to the way we've done on the International Space Station, we can accomplish a lot more for longer. So I'm looking forward to all of my training. And you might be asking yourself, how has my training changed since this assignment was made? I talked to you a little bit about how I support the International Space Station, but how do we actually train to go back to the moon? What does that look like? Well, I can show you a little highlight reel, a couple of the things that I've been working on. There are some things that haven't started yet. For instance, I will act as a lunar capcom, which means that I'll be in that same communication role that I was for the ISS, but for the crew that's circling around the moon in orbit, acting as a link for them from mission control to the Orion capsule itself, which I'm really looking forward to. But we also train as a crew member. So this was a very cool mission that I had the opportunity to go on back in July, and it's called Sea Test. You can tell exactly why it is called Sea Test. We are training in the Pacific Ocean. Here we are off the coast of Los Angeles. And we're training in scuba gear, so an underwater breathing apparatus. And we do this, we have full face masks so that we can communicate with a mock ground control. And we practiced all of the procedures and the logistics that we would need to move things from a cargo lander on the moon into an airlock. How do you get everything that you need to survive on the moon from that platform of that lunar lander into the airlock, or let's say to a lunar rover? This was, it's a lot of fun to be scuba diving and be on the bottom of the ocean floor like this. But I also learned a tremendous amount about what it would actually take to keep astronauts alive when they are living on a lunar base, which we're going to do. We're going to build a lunar base on the south pole of the moon, and that's coming in future Artemis flights. It's tremendously exciting. You might ask yourself why we're doing this underwater. Well, besides the elements of complexity that are added by breathing on an apparatus that might be similar to a spacesuit. In fact, you can see mocked up around my scuba tanks on one of those photos, you can actually see that we have like a frame that would act as like a life support system that would be on a spacesuit around my tanks. So I'm a similar size, at least in that area, to what I would be in a spacesuit. But we can also weigh ourselves out so that we can walk on the surface on the ocean floor in a similar gravity environment than we would on the moon. So it's a very useful comparison for us. And again, we have safety divers with us and an entire ground team supporting this mission and this learning. So that was one really, really cool way that we can kind of simulate what it might be like to be on the moon one day. The next mission I want to speak about, another way that we train to return to the moon, is a bit closer to home, and a lot of you will be familiar with it. So in Canada, in northern Labrador, there is a very special place called Combustion, or Mistastin Lake. And it's special for many reasons. This is a picture of our camp when we're in Combustion, right beside the lake. And you can see, first of all, it's very special because it's beautiful. We were so fortunate to see the Northern Lights on our first evening in the camp. But it's special for another reason. And this takes a bit of explanation. And those of you that are interested in geology will really love this. So I mentioned before that we are looking at going to the south pole of the moon. Well, the south pole of the moon has a certain type of rock that's very plentiful there, and it's called a northocite. A northocite is actually very rare on Earth, but there happens to be a lot of it in northern Labrador. If any of you have heard of labradorite, it's a type of anorthosite. So it's similar to what we have on the moon, not exactly the same. Those of you who have ever looked at the moon have obviously also noticed that it is marked with craters from asteroids impacting the surface of the moon. Well, 35 million years ago in northern Labrador, an asteroid impacted the surface of the Earth and left an impact crater that's very well preserved now, actually. So you have an impact into a anorthosite target rock, and on Earth, that is completely unique. It is the only place in the world that I know of that has those certain specific features which are so similar to the South Pole of the moon. So you might not know it, but we have astronauts training in our own backyard in northern Labrador. Here's a picture of Jeremy and I looking at some rock, a certain outcrop in northern Labrador in Kimistaston. And when we arrive at a certain site, we're challenged to not only describe what we see, because imagine again, you're on the moon now. You're an astronaut with lots of experience and you've landed on the moon and you are walking around in your spacesuit and you are the eyes for hundreds of thousands of scientists back on planet Earth who are learning through what you describe and what you see. How do you tell them about it in a way that helps them do their job and come up with all of these amazing analyses and conclusions that are going to help us learn about both our moon and our Earth? So we train to be able to do that. We train with some very talented geologists, some of which work and live in Canada. Moreover, if you have cargo to return, how do you pick the best rock samples to bring back? It's not always intuitive. And sometimes you might pick a rock that you think looks pretty, but it's not what the geologists are looking for. You want to pick a rock that has melt rock, that's solidified and has some of that original anorthosite in it. How do you pick the most scientifically valuable sample for those scientists as an astronaut? So this was some really, really amazing training that we got to do in our own backyard. And it was so valuable that we think we are going to have both Canadian and NASA astronauts who are going to go to the moon in the future coming to train in Labrador for many years to come. I also want to mention that this land is traditional Innu territory, and the Innu people were so generous with us. They made lots of observations and gave us a bunch of information that helped inform where we were going to go on our journey through this place, and really helped inform a lot of the decisions that we made. We were really fortunate that the Innu people and the cultural guardians that were with us, we were working with 3 of them, were so generous with us and allowed us to use this space and be there, because obviously that land is incredibly important to them. It's their traditional hunting ground. So we're very thankful for that sharing as well, and looking forward to continuing to work with them in the future. So I want to switch now to talking about the big picture again and what Canada in particular is contributing to lunar space exploration. We talked a little bit about what my training looks like, but let's talk a little bit about particularly what Canada is doing. And to start that, I need to talk about the contribution that we're making to a new space station, which is going to orbit the moon. This is called the Lunar Gateway, and we contributed the robotics to this station. So you can see in this artist interpretation image, an arm similar to what you might see on the International Space Station. This is the next generation of space robotics. We call this Canadarm3, and it's the new robotic system that will operate on the outside of the gateway. Canada also benefits from another flight to the Lunar Gateway later on because of this contribution, and it'll be a place where we can do some Canadian science right next to the moon. This space station will orbit the moon and facilitate landings to the surface, that South Pole that I talked about before. Canada is also building a lunar rover that's designed to find water ice on the moon's surface. So deep in a crater on the moon near the South Pole, there are dark regions where it's very, very cold, nearly permanently shadowed regions, and that's where we're most likely to find water ice. That is what this rover is going to search for. And that's really important for future exploration so that we can have water right on the moon instead of bringing it from Earth. It's very heavy. And we could use it for potentially fuel. We could use it for a breathable atmosphere, or we could potentially use it for, drinking, anything we might need actual water for. Canada will also be developing a lunar utility vehicle. You can see a mock-up of that here, which will aid astronauts actually when they are on the surface of the moon. It'll help move things around during missions, like I talked about, unloading, let's say, a lunar lander for a lunar habitat. We also want to make a couple of contributions which are more directly associated with challenges that we have here on Earth. So the two that I like to talk about the most, and these are big areas of contribution for Canada, are both remote healthcare and food production. So throughout this presentation, you might be wondering to yourself, why are we doing this? This is so detached from our everyday life. But actually, the way I want you to think about space is as an extension of your everyday life. So in Canada and around the world, we have to worry about things like clean water, food security and food production, power generation, and healthcare, keeping people healthy. Well, we have the same challenges when we send humans to space. And by solving those problems for astronauts on deep space missions, we're actually able to gain a lot of traction for the same problems that we might be experiencing back on Earth. So these two areas of expertise that Canada has for remote healthcare and food production really are phenomenal ways to contribute to the lunar base or future lunar base and help humans back here. So finding ways to keep astronauts healthy in deep space and produce healthy and nutrient-dense food. These are two technologies that we're working on developing at the Canadian Space Agency. The remote communities in Canada, let's say far from city centers, or maybe in particular urban centers where these are a challenge, we really need to improve. And this is how we're going to do that. So even though I showed you a picture like this and it might seem far away and something that's removed from our everyday life, I want you to think of our home. Think of our home planet and look back at the Earth. Again, this picture is taken from the International Space Station. You're looking back at your home planet and you are struck by seeing every place that you have ever been up until that moment, how thin our atmosphere is, the fact that you don't see any borders, and you think about everyone you've ever known and the way that space is contributing to their life. I just hope that we can all be reminded about how much technological development and scientific advancement we gain from this exploration. I just think it's so important, especially for a country as vast as ours, where things like monitoring ice melt and other markers for climate change, forest health are incredibly important. And the only way that you can really do that from a big picture view is from space. So that being said, I want to talk about how you can get involved. So some of these challenges are particularly tricky and we want to involve everybody. We are going to need everyone's help to solve them. So the Canadian Space Agency's Space Brain Hack is a really cool initiative which is open to all Canadian students. We want to get your ideas on how to grow fresh food in space for a 1-year lunar mission. If you are interested in this, you want to brainstorm, work with some of your friends, meet new people, and just talk about how cool these problems are and how we can solve them, I invite you to check out the Canadian Space Agency website and participate. I had a great opportunity to chat with a couple of the winners of the last Space Brain Hack, which was really cool for me to see what young people in Canada wanted to do in space. There are just so many ways to be involved, and we truly need everyone's help with this. So I would love it if you got involved, and hopefully we'll get some time together in the future. If you do want to get involved, I think that would be wonderful. So that being said, that's all I had to share with you today. I hope that you will engage with us on social media or come see us online. And with that, I think my 20 minutes are pretty much up. I wanted to leave a lot of time for your questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Again, I apologize, my video is not working, but I would be so happy to hear from you. So thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you so much, Jenny. That was amazing. The overview effect at the end there is something that we've had the chance to have numerous astronauts, both retired, active, share with us, and it never gets old. It's just a magical way of looking at the world, both literally and figuratively. And I also love the geology focus. We've had Oz Azinski on many times, Cass Marion. So if people want to check out on our YouTube channel a little bit more about that geology work that astronauts go through to try and understand the rocks that they might encounter on the moon, I really encourage our audience to check that out. Lots more to discover there. As you said, we're excited to get in with questions. They are going to dive in with our Q&A super soon. So live classes, I'm coming for one question to absolutely every one of you. YouTubers, I'd love to hear your questions as well. Start sharing them in the chat. But as I noted at the beginning, we're going to begin with a little Kahoot together. So 4 quick questions, test your understanding, have a little bit of fun. Jenny, what you can do is, I think you'll know the answers to these. I have a very good feeling since most of them relate to you personally. So if you want to help us out in the final second of each of these, please do. And I will note, there's nothing you win, but you do win Jenny and I's everlasting respect, which I think is pretty fantastic for a little game. Whoever's new to Kahoot,
right, cool.
The faster you answer, the more points you get in our Kahoot, especially if you're on YouTube. Get those answers in quick, and then we're going to dive in with questions. Classes from Newfoundland to Vancouver today, which is pretty spectacular. So big thank you to all of you again. Here we go. Question 1. Step here to the beginning of the talk. Who is paying attention? Jenny is one of how many active Canadian astronauts? So not retired astronauts. We got a lot of those. A lot of you might know Chris Hadfield, for instance. He's no longer active. There are how many active astronauts? Is Jenny the only one? Are there 4? Are there 10? Or are there 50? Get your answers in quick. Quick. 6 more seconds to go. Man, 50, maybe there'll be 50 soon after we inspire all the kids with this presentation.
I would love that. Let's get more in there.
Most of you got this right. There are 4 astronauts. So Jeremy Hansen, Josh Kudrick, David Saint-Jacques, and Jenny, of course. Way to go, everybody. Let's see where that sends our leaderboard. Super Frog in the lead to begin. Needless to say, not real names, but a great name just the same. Let us know if you are any of these folks at the end. I know. Go to the back. Question 2. Okay. You didn't show this, but the Space Agency website has some amazing footage of you in astronaut training. So when Jenny was chosen as an astronaut, one of 2 new astronauts, along with Josh Kudrick, how many people applied? Like, how epic is Jenny? Were there 15 people that applied? She's 2 of 15, 250, 1,000, or over 3,500 people applied. What do we think?
Oh, this is a tough question. What do you guys think?
There's a lot. I'm going to, anyone who knows my Kahoots know that, yes, I always go big. A lot of you thought 250. No, there was like, Jenny's like the best of the best. I told you she's like the best ambassador ever for Canada in space. And it's because she beat out everybody doing absolutely crazy things in the application process. I will send you the video and it will blow your mind, some of the things you have to do.
You guys are too kind. The coolest bit about that was meeting the other people there, all those Canadians who wanted to go to space.
Yeah, we've had Zen Mariani on. We've had Olathe McIntyre. We've talked to Adam Sirak in the past. So we've had quite a few of the candidates involved in a variety of ways.
I love that. Wonderful folks. That's great. Yeah.
Shining Turtle takes our lead as we go into our 3rd question. Jenny's a backup on the Artemis II mission to the moon. When does Artemis II leave? Is it 2035, 2030, 2050? Or 2024 with an exclamation point, which might give away the game a little bit.
What do you guys think? When did I say? No, then.
When are we going to the moon again? First time in over 50 years. 72 was 72, 73?
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, over 50 years since our last visit to the moon, which is just, wow, you guys got it.
You got it. And it's been too long. We're excited to go back. I can't hardly wait. All right. Oh, our leaderboard is all over the place. This is crazy. This has been hectic and madcap. Okay, Fearless Rooster takes our lead, barely, by 13 points. Going into final question. This is an easy one after this presentation. You kids have the potential to go to space, the moon, and Mars. True or false? What do we think?
You guys got to know this one.
I think they got to know. I mean, what I get to say in every space program that we do is that, like, honestly, the kids in these classes, grade 4, grade 5, grade 3, like, you kids have a very serious chance of having the capacity to go to the moon and Mars. Like, that is mind-blowing. That is like so beyond cool. 112 of you now in. That's crazy. I love it. True. 23 of you said false. No. It's true. It should be 100% true. Yes, you absolutely can, no matter where you're joining from. And again, we've got kids. I like to tell people this for Canada. We're so big. I said we have Gander, Newfoundland as our furthest east, and Vancouver, BC as our furthest west. We are in Newfoundland, where I am. We're closer to North Africa than we are to Vancouver. Like, we're a huge country. There's a lot of potential here. So get out there and apply for things, and you'll see what happens. Let's see our leaderboard, Jenny. Here we go. 3rd place, Super Frog, which is a brain with a pacifier for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, great name.
Shining Turtle. For all the marbles, drum roll, please. It is Fearless Rooster. Way to go. Folks, thank you so much for playing along with the Kahoot. That was a lot of fun. And now, the best part, we're going to dive in with questions. So I'm going to bring up Jenny's picture, which our friend Alice has been kind enough to bring up for us. So I'm going to highlight this great picture so you can see Jenny. There we are. There you are. And you look like remarkably composed for the entire Q&A session, which is great.
Thank you.
I'm going to head to our St. Marguerite school. If you guys want to kick us off with a question, come on up to the camera. We got so many schools. I'm coming to all of you, I promise, live with us. Welcome in, St. Marguerite. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah. Hi.
All of you. Amazing.
Amazing. All right. Do we have any questions for Jenni, folks?
Come on up. Okay. So, are spacesuits comfy?
Our spacesuits.
Ooh, great question. So there are lots of different types of spacesuits. I would say they are not designed to be the most comfortable. They're not like wearing your pajamas or something. They are designed to keep you safe, first and foremost. So usually they are big and they are heavy and they have a lot of stuff in them. So when we're training here on Earth, it can be really difficult to move around in them, especially if you're practicing doing a spacewalk. It is very challenging. But that being said, once you are in space, obviously you're not worried about it being heavy anymore. You're just worried about operating safely. And we can change the spacesuit such that it fits you as well as it could. So it might not be perfect, but for instance, we put a lot of effort into making sure the gloves fit so that you can do whatever task you need to, and making sure that you are safe. You are always attached to the space station where you need to be, and you can do your job safely. So I would say comfort is not the most important thing, but you can certainly happily operate in them, and you have that amazing view to distract you the whole time.
Fantastic answer. Thanks, Jenni. All right, we're going to head to Miss Hardy's class, Durham Spruce Ridge Community School. Come on in and welcome to the broadcast. Hi, guys. Let's
Welcome.
Hello. Share away. What's your question for Jenni today, guys?
Jordan. Yeah, go up, Jordan.
How long have you, Jenni, been up in space at once?
Ooh, this is a great question. I'm a rookie, just like you guys, unless some of you have been to space, which I don't know about, and that would be really, really cool. I would love that, but I've not been to space yet. 3 of the 4 Canadian astronauts have not yet been to space. David is the only one of us who has, but a lot of my friends have been in space, and when they go, they usually go for 6 months at a time. That being said, one of my really good friends, Frank Rubio, recently he was in space for over 1 year. Can you imagine leaving everything behind and living on the International Space Station to do science and spacewalks and maintenance for 1 year? It is just an extraordinary mission, and he did a phenomenal job, and we are so happy to have him back here on Earth after not seeing him for that long.
Fantastic question, guys. Thanks, Jenni. And it is nice to have him back. I encourage all our students, look at what happens when astronauts land back on Earth, because I think in our minds, it's like an epic, like walk out of the spaceship, and it doesn't look like that at all. And everyone
No.
We're going to head to St. Andrew Catholic School, because I know you guys have to go in a minute. So thanks for sticking around. Unmute your mic and welcome you guys, and take us away with a question. I'm coming to everyone, I promise.
Hey guys, so how long did the astronaut training take?
The astronaut training. Great question. Okay, so to train to become an astronaut, you have to work really hard at the job you were in before. So chances are you've spent a long time in some specific area of science or engineering or medicine expertise. So we're going to set all of that training aside. You did that in your previous job. You enter the astronaut office. You are picked to become an astronaut, and you have to train for at least 2 years to earn all of your basic qualifications. Kind of like if you're in like the Scouts or something and you need to earn badges. So you have to reach a certain level of proficiency or expertise, we say, in robotics, spacewalking, the Russian language, and all of the systems on the International Space Station. That will take you 2 years, and then after that, you graduate and you are eligible for a mission. Following that, you need to do all sorts of activities to stay current and train for a specific mission. Usually that's another couple of years before you fly in space. For Canadians, maybe it's a bit longer, maybe more like 5 to 10 years. So it takes you a long time. You're in space anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, more like 6 months these days. And yeah, it'll take you years, but it's well worth it. It's very cool.
It's like the coolest schooling in the world. It's like all the best skills of all time. You're like the smartest, fittest, most awesome person in the world by the time you're done school, which is the greatest thing about being an astronaut.
It is just like regular school. You're always learning. That's our big job as astronauts. We always have to make sure we're learning, just like you guys.
Fantastic. Great question, guys. All right. I'm going to head to Westheimer Junior Middle School. So when we had all our classes registered for the program, this name jumped out to me because it's where my wife went to middle school. And I grew up at Kipling and Dixon. So a huge welcome to Miss Carano's class. If you guys want to unmute your mic, come on in Rexdale. Hi, guys.
Hello.
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 So you got a question for Jenni, guys?
Yeah. How do you feel before going to space?
Ooh.
How do you feel before going to space? So the process for going to space is long. You have to get suited up. You have to get medically ready. You're waiting on the launch pad for the final countdown. Your rocket has to be perfect. Everything has to be fueled up. And the Earth has to be in the right position such that when you do launch, you have a reasonable time frame to orbit the Earth and get wherever you're going. So we call that orbital mechanics. You need to be in the right position in order to launch and go. So we have these things called launch windows. You can launch within that window. How you feel leading up to the launch, okay, chances are you're incredibly excited. It is the culmination of so much hard work for years. So you are ready to go. You have trained in every way imaginable for this moment. You are used to your crew. You are ready. People sometimes ask me if you're scared at that point. I don't think that it's fear. Usually I associate fear with things that you don't know, but we're so fortunate that we have the best possible teachers on the ground for all of these scenarios and pieces of hardware that we're going to encounter in the launch itself, that by that time, you know what to do. You are excited. I don't think we experience fear as in fear of the unknown in the same way. I would just say that you are buzzing. You are ready. You're ready to go.
What a beautiful answer. Thanks for that, Jenni. I always love when kids ask about, would you be interested in going to space? Where would you go? How would you feel? It's one of my very favorite questions. So thanks, Ms. Carano's class. That was awesome. All right, 4 more live classes. I'm coming to you all, so stick around. Montessori School, I'm going to head to you guys first. If any of our other classes have to go in the next couple minutes, I'll try and prioritize you, but we're going to get through everyone, I promise. Hi, Montessori School folks. Welcome in. Hey. Hello, Texas. Welcome in. Right down the road from Jenni.
Hi.
So, my question is, what other kinds of robots and machinery are you going to use on the ISS and the other space station for the moon?
Amazing question.
Ooh, I love this question, especially because Canada focuses on robotics. So Canada has made a few really cool space robots. So there's one on the International Space Station right now, which is called Canadarm2. The original Canadarm flew with the shuttle. So those of you who know a bit more about space and have been following a bit longer will recognize that. And the arm does all sorts of things for us. It can repair things on the outside of the International Space Station. It can move astronauts around. You can put your feet basically in a foot restraint that the arm holds in kind of like its hand, and it can move you around station. And there's also something that we call Dexter, which is like a dexterous robot, which can also fix things, and Canada made that as well. So that's a really cool robotic system we have on the International Space Station. There's all sorts of computers and software on the International Space Station that make it habitable. So help us recycle our water and provide a safe atmosphere for us to breathe. So there's all sorts of things on the International Space Station we use. When we go to the lunar surface, we will need those rovers that we talked about. So we will have a lunar utility vehicle Canada's making, and we'll be able to use that on our spacewalks on the lunar surface. There's talk of a roving vehicle that astronauts can ride in or drive, kind of like a moon buggy that you saw in Apollo. There's talk about that. There's all sorts of rovers to find water ice. And that amazing space station that I mentioned, which is called Lunar Gateway, which is going to orbit the moon, that's going to have the next generation of space robotics on it. So that robotic arm, and that is so special because the big difference between the Lunar Gateway and the ISS, or the International Space Station, is that on the Lunar Gateway, there won't always be people. the International Space Station has had a crew presence or people on it continuously for over 20 years, like 25 years, which is incredible. We just keep swapping people out. And if there were no people on it, we would not be able to keep it in space. It would not work. We need people there, but the Lunar Gateway will not have crew on it all the time. So it's up to that robotic system and the controllers here on Earth to use it to make sure that we stay healthy and that we protect that incredible platform that we're building out there. So that's a very cool robotic system, and I urge you guys to check it out. You can find more information on the Space Agency website, yeah, keep following it.
Amazing. I'm going to message all our registered classes with all sorts of stuff about Gateway, robotics, everything you need to do to keep the learning going. There's so much to discover. And because you mentioned the ISS and astronauts on it, everybody, when you're done tonight, should go to spotthestation.nasa.gov. You can type in any city in the world, wherever you are, and it'll tell you where you can look for the ISS any night. So literally any night that you want, you can look up and see actual astronauts in space on the spacecraft going by, which is just unbelievably cool. I did it as a grown man, and I was just like, my jaw was on the floor. So everyone should check that out.
I love it too. That's great.
Jenni, we're going to take 4 more questions, 3 from our live classes, 1 from YouTube. We've got more questions that we could possibly answer in one broadcast, but I promise I'll follow up with all sorts of great resources when we're done. We are going to head to our DDRW grade 6 crew. Welcome in, guys. So many of you. And hi. Wow. Love the energy. All right. I'm so excited. You're so excited. Do you have a question for Jenni?
How would you feel if you went to space and you went on the moon after 51 years for the first time?
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. This is a hard question to answer because I'm not sure I know. First of all, I would be so honored if I had the opportunity to do that and to be able to answer some questions that scientists had about the moon and the processes that shaped it and those same processes that our Earth has undergone. I mean, we would learn so much about our own planet by doing that. So I would feel honored, first and foremost. I probably would be incredibly excited. I just would want to describe everything that I could possibly see. I would want them to know what it felt like to walk on the regolith or the rocks and the sand on the Earth. I would want to describe what colors there are. I would want to collect the best possible samples. I would feel a lot of responsibility and enthusiasm for sharing it for the sake of science. I would probably be a little bit nervous. I bet a lot of you would be too. You don't want to fall over or something like that when you're in that situation. So I think those are all very human emotions. And that's what I could think off the top of my head. But oh my goodness, it would be such an honor and a privilege to be in a position like that and be able to share it with the rest of the world and Canadians especially.
What a beautiful answer. Thank you for that, Jenni. Great question, guys. All right, we're going to take one from our FWPS crew, Miss Paulowin's class, and then Miss Parkinson's class on YouTube. You guys have a great last question to ask. We'll wrap up with that in just a minute. But Steam 5s, hi, guys. Hello. It never gets old. It never gets old. So much fun. Hi, so if you have a question for Jenni, come on up.
Can you still see the sunrise and sunset when you're in space?
Ooh.
Oh, I love this question. You can, absolutely, but it looks very different. So remember that picture I showed you early on? You would first of all have to get used to seeing the sun against a dark sky. How weird is that? Because usually we see it against a blue sky because of our atmosphere. But no, you see it against a dark sky and you're orbiting the Earth. So you have multiple sunrises and sunsets a day. I think something like 19, like every 45 minutes or so, you see the sunrise and the sunset. And we have special names for them when you're on orbit. You call it being an insolation. So when you see the sun and the sun is shining on the International Space Station or on you, and then in eclipse when the sun is not shining on you, because again, you're orbiting the Earth. And those moments where you have sunrise and sunset are absolutely beautiful. And there are so many photos of them online. Remember, you're orbiting the Earth at like very, very fast, like 8 kilometers a second, like so fast. So you're seeing multiple sunrises and sunsets, and they're absolutely beautiful. I would urge you all to look those up. There are lots of pictures of them on NASA and the CSA's website. Again, you're going to send those out, so that's great.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jenny. All right, second, our penultimate question. We're going to head to Miss Parliament's class. Unmute your mic. Hello, guys. Welcome in our last.
Okay. So my question is, what is the during a mission? What is the most important role in mission control?
Oh, cool question, man.
Oh, very cool question. Okay, so I don't know how to answer most important because it depends what's happening. So we have flight controllers, and those you would consider the people in mission control who have a certain system, which is their area of expertise. We have a flight controller for the crew, the systems that keep crew alive, like the atmosphere systems. That would be, we call that ECLIS. You have someone who tracks the attitude or the position of station. You have someone who's involved in all of the communication systems on the International Space Station. You have the communicator, who's the capcom or capsule communicator. Usually that's an astronaut on the ground, but sometimes we have other engineers fill that role. The boss, the person in the room who makes the decision and who the responsibility for that mission ultimately lies with, is called the flight director. And their call sign is flight. So we're all talking to each other, and people bring all of those flight controllers I told you about, bring information to flight or flight director, and he or she makes the decision based on all of that information that they gain. So the most important person in the room, it depends what's happening, but the person who makes the ultimate decision is the flight director. And a very, very famous flight director is named Gene Kranz, and you probably recognize that name if any of you are familiar with the Apollo missions.
Gene is awesome. I was just going to mention him if you didn't, so thank you for that. There's an amazing series about the Apollo missions in general. I brought it up with an episode name related to geology, but From the Earth to the Moon is the series. Galileo was right is the name of the episode about lunar geology, some of the stuff you were talking about. And if everyone should watch From the Earth to the Moon, it's like the greatest miniseries of all time. So
love that. Yes.
For everyone. Jenny, time flies and you're having fun. We're nearing the end of our broadcast. I want to know that everyone, I'll be sending this to all our classes, but the Canadian Space Agency website has so much more to explore and discover. This slightly unwieldy URL is more on Jenny, and you can see some of her astronaut training and more, which is really fun. And she's on all social media at @astro_Jenny. Lot to discover. She is amazing, as you've had the chance to hear from today. But I want to wrap up with one final question, because it's the perfect question related to how you ended your talk, how I started the Kahoot, which is our kids have this chance to be an astronaut in the next few decades. And so this coming in from Guelph, it's a long question, but what advice would you give to Canadian students considering a future career in space-related STEM areas? Like, where should they go? What should they do to become as awesome as you?
Oh, well, thank you. Okay. First of all, I have to say it has been an absolute pleasure. I've loved being involved. I've loved your questions. Thank you so much. And finally, this is a great question to finish on, because there are so many ways to get involved. The advice that usually I give people who are interested in anything to do with space, and that usually is everybody, because space is so all-encompassing. Chances are, if you're interested in something technical, whether it's medicine or it's dynamics or it's spacecraft or it's human systems, it all has to do with space, even growing food. So the advice I would give you is find something that you are super passionate about. So the thing that all of the astronauts have in common is something that we did before. We were so passionate about, we worked really, really hard at it, and it was a technical field that brought us a lot of joy. So I would encourage you to try and find that, whatever it is for you. The space agency and institutions like this, societies like Explore by the Seat of Your Pants, can really help, because it exposes you to many different areas of expertise that you can discover and figure out what's best for you. So I would urge you to get involved in as many things you can, find what makes you happy and passionate, and work toward it. And just like we said earlier, this is a great time to be interested in space and STEM careers in general, because there are more ways to get to space than ever before. And though the number of opportunities are only increasing. So stay involved with the society, look up the Canadian Space Agency's website, get involved with the Space Brain Hack, and just see where it takes you. It is so exciting.
Jenny, that is a beautiful wrap up, a great final answer. I'm going to say goodbye with my pet moon globe, which everyone should get for their classes because they are amazing. And I want to say a big farewell to everyone. We're going to bring in all our live classes to say a big thank you and farewell. If you're on YouTube and you just want to scream out and yell in your class as well and annoy the principal in the other classes, you're welcome to do that. I encourage it, and you can blame me later. But we're going to bring in our St. Marguerite class, West Hubbard Junior Middle, DDRW, FWPS. Have a wonderful day. guys. See you all soon. Thank you.